The early morning light spilled through the towering glass walls of Grayson Industries, catching the sleek lines of its marble lobby. Every day, the building buzzed with polished shoes, expensive perfumes, and the sharp cadence of ambition. And every day, moving quietly through the tide of well-dressed professionals, was Samuel Johnson, pushing a mop bucket, his navy overalls faded from years of use, his work boots scuffed from countless steps across the same floors. He kept his head down, eyes fixed on the floor as people streamed past him without so much as a nod. Conversations flew over his head, punctuated by laughter and the clink of coffee cups. No one seemed to notice the man who made sure their pristine workplace gleamed each morning. A pair of interns walked by, whispering just loud enough for him to hear. "Imagine ending up as a janitor here," one said with a smirk. "Poor guy." Samuel's hands paused on the mop handle for the briefest second, but he didn't respond. Instead, he dipped the mop back into the bucket and kept moving. He had learned long ago that dignity didn't require defending itself against ignorance. Around noon, a group of executives strolled into the lobby, laughing over some private joke. One of them, a tall man in a tailored suit and expensive watch, deliberately nudged Samuel's bucket with his foot, sending soapy water spilling across the marble. "Oops," the man said with a mocking smile, making no effort to help. The others chuckled, stepping around the spreading puddle. Samuel silently fetched his mop, cleaning up the mess as if nothing had happened. But as he wrung out the mop, his eyes briefly lifted toward the man, recognition flickering there. He had overheard this executive earlier boasting about a shady deal, the kind Samuel had seen ruin lives before. What no one knew was that Samuel wasn't just a janitor. Years ago, he had been one of the country's most respected corporate auditors, a man whose skill at uncovering financial corruption was unmatched. But betrayal by his own business partner had cost him everything, his career, his fortune, and nearly his faith in people. He had walked away from that life, until fate, in its strange way, placed him inside Grayson Industries. And now, surrounded by arrogance, cruelty, and secrets, Samuel knew something they didn't. They thought he was invisible. They thought he was powerless. But he had already begun to see the cracks, and he knew exactly how to break the entire structure apart. Samuel's days at Grayson Industries became more than just a routine of sweeping floors and polishing brass rails. While his mop moved in steady arcs, his mind was absorbing everything around him. He had a gift for listening without appearing to listen, for standing in plain sight while being invisible. Every careless remark, every whispered conversation, every forgotten document left on a desk became a piece of a puzzle. And slowly, the picture was forming. He noticed patterns first, employees from lower departments being suddenly let go after raising concerns, while the same executives flaunted new cars and watches. Coffee breaks turned into opportunities for him to linger just long enough to overhear talk about padded invoices, creative accounting, and deals that never made it into the official records. He kept his face neutral, pushing his cart past open doors, but behind that calm exterior, his memory was recording every detail. One evening, when the building was nearly empty, Samuel rolled his cart into the executive wing. The lights there were always dim after hours, and the only sound was the low hum of the air conditioning. He wore gloves, part of his normal cleaning routine, but tonight they served another purpose. He moved quietly from office to office, his keyring granting him access to filing cabinets and storage rooms. Each drawer he opened revealed more threads in the web, contracts signed with shell companies, financial reports with numbers that didn't add up, and confidential memos marked, for internal eyes only. Using an old but reliable phone, Samuel snapped photos of documents, making sure to return everything exactly as he had found it. His hands were steady, not from lack of nerves, but from experience. Years ago, in his auditing career, he had exposed multimillion-dollar frauds. The difference now was that no one expected the janitor to be dangerous. Later that night, he uploaded the images to a secure cloud drive under an alias he'd used back in his corporate days. He knew these files alone wouldn't be enough, he needed more, and he needed corroboration. Picking up his phone, Samuel hesitated for a long moment before calling a number he hadn't dialed in years. When the voice on the other end answered, there was surprise and caution. "Sam. I thought you disappeared." "I did," he said evenly. "But I think I just found a reason to come back." Monday mornings at Grayson Industries always began the same, coffee in hand, phones buzzing, and polite chatter echoing through the lobby. But this Monday was different. At exactly 10 a.m., the building's PA system crackled to life. "Attention all employees, please proceed to the main lobby immediately." Confused voices filled the air as people abandoned their desks and trickled toward the open space. Within minutes, the entire workforce was gathered, murmuring, wondering if it was a fire drill or some emergency. When the crowd parted slightly, they saw him. Samuel Johnson stood in the center of the lobby, but not in his faded overalls. Instead, he wore a tailored charcoal suit, polished shoes, and a calm, steady expression. In his hands was a thick leather folder. The man who had mopped their floors for years looked entirely different, and the sudden silence was almost deafening. "Some of you know me as the janitor," Samuel began, his voice measured but carrying across the marble space. "But today, I stand here as something else, the man who knows exactly what's been happening inside this company." The projection screen behind him flickered to life. One by one, damning images appeared, forged contracts, bank statements showing money funneled to offshore accounts, memos detailing harassment payouts. Gasps broke out. Some employees covered their mouths, others exchanged horrified glances. The executives standing near the back shifted uncomfortably, their confidence evaporating. Samuel's voice never wavered. "I have spent months watching, listening, collecting. You saw a man with a mop and assumed he was beneath you. You mocked me, ignored me, and believed your secrets were safe. You were wrong." Right on cue, the front doors opened, and in walked a team of federal agents, badges flashing under the bright lobby lights. Reporters, tipped off earlier, streamed in behind them, cameras rolling. The agents moved directly to the executives, reading them their rights as handcuffs clicked shut. The entire building seemed to hold its breath. Samuel didn't gloat. He simply closed the folder, stepped aside, and let the agents work. "A company without integrity," he said quietly to the stunned employees, "is already bankrupt, even if it doesn't know it yet." And with that, the man they had dismissed as just the janitor had turned the entire empire upside down in a single morning. The aftermath of that Monday rippled far beyond Grayson Industries' glass walls. By Friday, the building was nearly empty. Federal investigators had seized files, computers, and even the personal belongings of arrested executives. The once proud company logo above the lobby doors now looked like a hollow symbol of greed and downfall. News headlines called it the most explosive corporate takedown of the decade, and Samuel Johnson's name was everywhere. But Samuel refused interviews. He had no interest in basking in public praise, the satisfaction of truth was enough. That afternoon, he returned to collect the few items he had left in his janitor's closet, a battered thermos, an old radio, and the mop he'd pushed countless miles across the marble floors. As he stepped into the silent lobby, he was approached by a young woman, the same intern who had once whispered cruelly about him. Her eyes were downcast. "Mr. Johnson." "I'm sorry," she said quietly. "I laughed at you that day. I didn't know who you were." "I didn't know," her voice trailed off. Samuel studied her for a moment, then gave a small, kind smile. "That's the thing about respect," he said gently. "You give it before you know someone's story, or it's not worth much." The intern nodded, visibly moved, and stepped aside as he passed. Outside, his old friend from the government was waiting by her car, arms crossed with a knowing look. "You did good, Sam," she said. "We could use someone like you again. Full-time." He hesitated, the weight of the offer hanging in the air. For years, he had chosen a quiet life, far from the chaos of corporate battles. But something in him stirred, the part of him that still believed in holding the powerful accountable. He glanced back at the towering building one last time. It was just concrete and glass now, stripped of its illusion of untouchable power. Maybe, he said at last. But this time, I do it on my own terms. With that, Samuel walked toward the waiting car, the sun dipping low behind him. The man they had once ignored, mocked, and underestimated had not only cleaned floors, he had cleaned out an entire empire of corruption. And somewhere deep inside, Samuel knew this wasn't the end of his story. It was just the beginning.